This is the untold chapter of African history, the story of how Islam entered Africa and slowly replaced the essence of what it meant to be African. This is not a story of hate nor of blind blame. It is a story of loss, of resistance, and of forgotten truths. Because what we lost was not just belief systems, it was memory. And if a people lose their memory, they lose their power. Today, we remember. Islam's first contact with Africa began nobly. In 615 CE, a small group of early Muslims, fleeing persecution in Mecca, sought refuge in the Christian kingdom of Aksum, modern-day Ethiopia. The African king, known as the Negus, welcomed them. No war, no conquest, just asylum and peace. This moment, known as the First Hijra, is remembered in both Islamic and Ethiopian history as a moment of grace. But that was only the beginning. In the following centuries, Islam expanded beyond hospitality. By the late 600s, Arab armies had swept through North Africa, Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, each conquered in the name of faith. The indigenous Amazigh, Berber people, resisted at first, but eventually many converted, blending Islamic teachings with native customs. These Berbers would carry Islam southward, across the Sahara. But as Islam moved deeper into Africa, it didn't just arrive as a belief system, it came as a full cultural order, one that would eventually displace Africa's own sacred knowledge. By the 9th century, Islam had followed gold and salt across the desert. Through trade, it entered the great empires of West Africa, Ghana, Mali, Songhai. Muslim traders brought literacy, textiles, architecture, and the Arabic language. Kings like Mansa Musa embraced Islam not only for spiritual reasons, but for economic and political power. They aligned with the Islamic world to gain access to trade routes, scholars, and prestige. But beneath this golden surface, something deeper shifted. The Quran replaced oral storytelling. Arabic replaced native tongues. Written scripture began to dominate, and the drumbeat of African gods began to fade. As cities like Timbuktu rose in glory, the sacred traditions of the villages were quietly called backward, pagan, primitive, dangerous. A silent war had begun, and the battlefield was the African soul. To the Islamic worldview, the spirit-filled world of African spirituality was heresy. Ancestor worship became shirk. Nature-based rituals became sin. Our rivers, trees, and mountains, once divine, were now just objects. The spirits we once loved were now feared as devils. African diviners and healers, once honored, became witches, their rituals condemned, their knowledge erased. What had once guided generations was now outlawed by foreign doctrine. Even the roles of women were dismantled. In African tradition, women had stood as priestesses, diviners, guardians of the spirit. But under Islamic law, spiritual leadership became male. The sacred feminine was stripped of voice, power, and place. And so, slowly, with every prayer in a foreign tongue, Africa forgot her gods and forgot herself. By the 18th century, Islam's slow erosion of African spirituality turned into open war. The jihads had begun, not against Europeans, but against African rulers who still clung to old beliefs. In 1804, Usman Dan Fodio launched a jihad in what is now northern Nigeria. He accused the Hausa kings of heresy and called for a pure Islamic state. His war toppled kingdoms, burned shrines, silenced griots, and outlawed ancestral worship. The Sokoto Caliphate he built became one of the largest Islamic empires in Africa. It would inspire other jihads, from the Tukulur Empire in Senegal to Samurai Touré's campaigns in Guinea. These were not just political wars. They were spiritual purges, designed to erase African memory and replace it with Arab orthodoxy. Islam forbade the enslavement of fellow Muslims, but left the door open for capturing non-Muslims. This loophole became a system. Muslim traders, long before Europeans, raided African villages. Their victims were labeled kafir, unbelievers. These captives were marched across the Sahara, sold in markets from Cairo to Mecca. Millions vanished, and their only crime was holding on to their own gods. Many were forcibly converted, taught to abandon their names, languages, ancestors. Islam became not just a religion, but a chain. They were not only stolen from their lands, they were stolen from their spirits. And the silence of this chapter still echoes across our continent. Today, Islam is a major religion in Africa. For many, it is sacred, a path to God, a source of identity. But we must also speak the truth. Islam did not arrive on a blank canvas. It arrived on sacred land already rich in wisdom, in rhythm, in divine balance. And in many places, it replaced that, not always through violence, but through the slow, generational erasure of memory. Now, many Africans pray in Arabic but do not know the names of their ancestors. They call their own traditions witchcraft and their own gods false. This is not faith. This is colonization of the soul. This is not a call to hate Islam. It is a call to remember what was lost. Before the Quran, there were the sacred stones. Before the mosque, there were forest temples. Before the prophet, there were ancestors who spoke through fire, water, wind, and bone. The African spirit is not dead. It lives in stories, in silence, in resistance. It lives in the dreams of those who dare to remember. So if this truth moved you, don't let it fade. Share it, speak it, teach it. Because every time we tell our story, we undo a lie. Every time we remember our ancestors, we breathe life into what they tried to bury. We are not lost. We were taken. But now, we return. Return to the drum. Return to the fire. Return to the whisper of your grandmother's gods. You are the descendant of kings, of queens, of spirits. And no empire, Arab, European, or modern, can erase that. So rise, child of Africa. Rise with memory. Rise with pride. And let your voice be the echo of a people awakening. This is the African history.